We kick off the show today with TCU head coach Sonny Dykes, who joins us live here on OutKick. Coach, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes, right? With the conference-wise. Here we go. And as far as, as I look at things, it's a pretty even conference right now where you sit. Is that how you see things from our vantage point to yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think, obviously the last couple of years, there's been a significant amount of changes in the Big 12. A lot of teams coming in, Texas and Oklahoma moving out, and then, adding the 4 corner schools from the Pac-12. So, a lot of new faces in the league, a lot of teams that have had a lot of success historically. You add Utah, which has been a very, very strong program, very consistent program for a long time. And you add some programs that got hot last year, like Arizona, and had a great season last year. And then you add that to, a Big 12 conference that has, been pretty consistent in terms of a lot of different teams have had opportunities to play in the conference championship game. 6 different teams in the last 3 years. So it's been a league that, hasn't really had anybody dominate the league in a while. And so it's been very competitive. And it's going to be interesting to see how this stuff plays out. I really do think anybody can win the league, certainly given, the schedule. Everybody's not playing everybody. When we went 12-0 in 2022, there were 10 teams in the league, and we played everybody. And so, now it's a little bit different. And so there's a lot of differences now than there has been.
It's also so odd to me to look down at your schedule, Coach, and realize that you're playing on the road against 2 ACC opponents. And those 2 ACC opponents in the non-conference are Stanford and SMU. And you have road games against both of those 2 schools. Now, I know a lot of this stuff is done way in advance, but not just the shift in the Big 12. But when you see a program that TCU is very familiar with in SMU making the move to the ACC, and how your non-conference schedule is now loaded up for some of these reasons. What do you think about not just the shift with your conference, but others as well?
Yeah, definitely interesting times in college football. A lot of movement going on. I think a lot of movement still to occur. So a lot of things happening. As you said, these schedules are made so far in advance, and the TCU rivalry, TCU SMU rivalry has been going on for a long time. That's always been something that the 2 institutions have done, for a number of years. And then at that time, Stanford was obviously a Pac-12 team when the schedule was built. And so, it's a strange time. It's a strange time in college football. 2 of those teams, SMU was at that time a non-Power 5 team, and Stanford again was a Pac-12 team, and now both of them are ACC members. And I don't think anybody could have ever predicted that.
What would the legendary Spike Dykes, your father, say about the state of college football right now?
Well, he would definitely think it's interesting. There has been a lot of things that have happened here over the last couple of years, and I think more to come. I really do. I think what's made college football special has been historic rivalries, and you hate to see that kind of go away in some ways, and in some ways it's getting rekindled. Texas and Texas A&M haven't played in a long time, and now they're going to play each other every year as members of the SEC, and I think that's good for college football. I think there's been a lot of changes, and some of them I think have been good, and some of them have probably not been as good and made as much sense as some others. But at the end of the day, our job's to play the schedule that we have, to put the best team on the field, the most consistent team that we can produce, and go out there and win as many games as we possibly can. And so that's really been our focus, but it is an interesting time to be a college football fan.
Yeah, put the best on the field. And now you can put as many staff members on the field. Dana Holgerson joins as support staff. Todd Graham is also a part of your staff now. And as opposed to what we've seen, now those guys can be on the sideline with you. That had to be a massive part of the decision to bring those guys in, not just because of their background and knowledge, but because they can actually help you on game day.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of those guys are I've been very successful head coaches. I've known both of them for 25 plus years. Dana and I worked together back in 2000 at Texas Tech on Mike Leach's staff. We knew each other even before then. We've known each other for a long time. Todd Graham was a high school coach here in the DFW area, and I recruited his school when I was at Texas Tech. So I met him in 2000. He was the head coach at Allen High School and worked his way up from there. And so both of them had tremendous success as head coaches at different institutions. And so anytime you can add that kind of experience, that kind of knowledge, those guys are both outside the box thinkers. And so you can, you have your system in place and what you want to do, but you also, are always looking to get better, and they'll be able to come in and see what we do, how we do it, see our structure from everything to recruiting, to NIL, to player development, to scheme, to all the different things, and have some ideas on how we can get better and how we can improve. And both those guys are very smart and very successful, and have been able to navigate different places and have success really at different institutions. So their experience is invaluable, and it's going to help our coaching staff. We already have a really strong staff, and these guys are certainly going to add to it.
Coach, you had referenced that magical run you guys had in 2022, going all the way to the national championship game. You fall back a year ago, 5-7 season, but oftentimes when you have that magical run, you don't really see the bump from that until not the next season, but the season after, because you're bound to lose a lot of players from the one great team. Are you seeing that now within the program? Are you seeing that some in recruiting of people knowing you because of that 2022 season, and you start to see the benefit in 2024?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Certainly, that run we had in 22, getting to the national championship game, I think gave our program some credibility. TCU has had a really strong program for a long time, and has been very consistent through those years. But, there's nothing like getting in the college football playoff, and there's nothing like winning a semifinal game and advancing to the national championship. And so I think it did give us credibility. I think it did open some people's eyes to what this university and this football program is capable of. And then we took a big step back last year. We had that run, had a really good team, just assumed that there would be some carryover from last year. And there wasn't, and we didn't do a very good job. I certainly didn't do a good job handling the team and making sure that those guys, knew that we had to start from scratch. And I think there was this assumption that, okay, we've done this, now we can build on that. And in today's college football, it's a different team every year. It's an entirely new roster, and we didn't handle it particularly well. And so I think there's a hunger and a desire and an edge to this football team to get back to where we were in 22 and to have that kind of season. The work ethic has been outstanding. Our guys have done everything we've asked, and we've gotten off to a really good start so far in fall camp. And so, we feel like we're headed to a good place, but a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of things that are going to happen between, now and that first game at Stanford. And but we feel like we're in a good place for sure.
Coach, one of the things you did handle well was changing the signs against Michigan. Chad and I are going to discuss the notice of allegations a bit later in the show. But did the NCAA reach out to you or TCU about that and how you handled that preparation against what was going on there at the time?
No, not that I'm aware of. They certainly haven't reached out to me, and I'm not aware if they've reached out to anybody else on our staff. But I think that it sounds to me like they've done a pretty thorough investigation of everything, and it sounds to me like they've come to some conclusions and are getting ready to share them with us all. And it was definitely an interesting, definitely an interesting time. We were preparing for Michigan. We had a long time to prepare for them, and as we got started, you know how it is. You call people that at some of the schools that they played, and everybody kind of kept saying, "Hey, watch the signals and be careful with this." And you hear that from people, and often you hear that from people that lost a game as kind of an excuse. And I think we treated it that way at first a little bit, and then I think as we started to hear it more and more and started to dive into it a little bit, it seemed pretty obvious maybe that something was going on, but we had no idea what or to what extent. I think stealing signals is pretty common in college football, but I think that Michigan took it to a different level is what it sounds like to me, and certainly what we heard. And so we made a couple of changes. Wasn't anything earth shattering. Made some changes to to kind of protect our offense and defense, from them, and as we played in that semifinal game. And I think it certainly helped us. And I don't know that we would have been able to win that game had we not gotten some of that information.
So, I mean, and it can be as simple as just having a dummy call or a dummy sign. And was there a play that comes to mind where you knew you got them on a sign that they thought a play was coming, but it really wasn't that play?
Oh, I can't think of anything specific, but there was some times where we got into a formation and we checked, did a check with me on the sideline and signaled in a dummy call, and they signaled in a call, and we didn't change the call to the signal, and I think that there was the assumption maybe that it had been, or it certainly looked that way.
Right.
It's speculation on my part, but one or two, I think, plays in the ball game probably resulted from that. Again, it's hard to say that for sure, but I think we can speculate that way.
And one or two plays is about one or two of the 5 or 6 that determine a football game.
Yeah, well, very very smart by you and your coaching staff. I am curious though, and we don't know this, and we haven't read the notice of allegation, but we're seeing some reports coming out of it. If it comes out that, and you mentioned this was a little bit above and beyond as opposed to what you see with normal sign stealing in college football. If in some way it's released that other programs believe they were affected, teams that Michigan was not even playing, but were going to be affected positively by if they lost in the playoff race, how much worse do you think that is from a coaching standpoint?
Oh, I think it's like anything. I mean, look, we have so much on our plates right now that we have to kind of move on. I think we all know that things happen sometimes in college football that maybe we're not comfortable with, and you hope at some point that it's taken seriously and investigated, and you hope at some point that if they decide to punish a school, and I'm not talking about Michigan specifically, any school really for that matter, that it has teeth, just to encourage people to not do it. And I think that's been probably part of our biggest issue in college football, has been when we found programs guilty of violations, that there really hasn't been anything that's encouraged them significantly enough not to do those violations or commit those violations again. And so you just hope that at some point, whether, like I said, it's Michigan or whomever, that finds some wrongdoing within the program, that there's something with teeth to encourage programs to do things the right way.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed by sort of the arrogance of it. If a lot of coaches knew about it and multiple coaches were talking, you would think Michigan would. From your perspective with your program, in terms of a self-scout, just in general, how do you go about that with you and your coaches from season to season to adjust, not something specifically like this, but maybe something you can pick up on that other programs are seeing around you? How does that work when you start to self-scout your own program?
Yeah, look, there are coaches and programs that have reputations. I think that's pretty common knowledge in college football in some ways. I mean, we're going to play some folks that I think, historically, sign stealing's been, a pretty significant, part of what they do, and a very important part of what they do, and a very important part of their success. I think we're trying to do what we can in college football to fix those issues now with the helmet communication. I think is a step in the right direction. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be able to fix everything, because you're going to have teams that know huddle and go fast and are going to want to have, quick communication, whether it comes, via the sideline to the quarterback and then is communicated to the players, or whether it comes directly from the sideline to all the players. You're still going to have issues, but at the same time, I think that this will do some pretty significant things to fix it. And I think that's all you can ask for is progress. For whatever reason, for a long time, there was this, there wasn't really a lot of concern about that in college football. The NFL for years and years and years has had, direct contact from the coaching staff to the quarterback or a defensive player, typically a linebacker, to deal with some of those issues. And we haven't had that in college football, and thankfully we do now. And I think that it will change people's philosophy. They'll have to change a little bit of how they do things, probably moving forward. But again, that's still going to be part of the game, and a part of the game that we don't particularly like. What's been interesting in college football, and I think it's really been embarrassing in some ways, is you look on a college football sideline and there's people holding up cards and there's people, holding up towels and different things to block signals. And I mean, it looks like a circus out there. And it's a shame that it got to that point before we tried to address it. But I think luckily we are, and hopefully it'll fix the problem.
Do you think the College Football Hall of Fame should change their 60% win criteria to allow for Mike Leach to be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, certainly. I mean, look, you've got to have some kind of criteria because there's always going to be people that you feel like that need an exception. But if there's anybody that ever would get an exception, it would be Mike Leach, just for what he did for college football and how profound his impact and far-reaching his impact was on the game. I think I just saw that Kentucky may have to forfeit some of their games in one of those win against Mississippi State, and if that's the case, I think that'll put Mike Leach over that 60% threshold.
It would.
And I think that would obviously be something that should happen regardless. And Mike was incredibly innovative, in my opinion, one of the biggest innovators in the history of college football, and that carried over to the way the game is played at every single level now. And he needs to be in the College Football Hall of Fame without a doubt. And again, I understand their point of view. You have to have some kind of criteria, but my hope is whether or not that vacated win matters, that he gets in, because he certainly deserves it.
Coach, you certainly are known for great leadership. Scaling up, commissioner-wise, we always discuss Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti now with the Big Ten. How about leadership in the Big 12 with Brett Yormark and seeing what the other two are doing and trying to make sure that the Big 12 stays relevant? How would you assess overall leadership from the top down?
Well, it's my opinion that had it not been for Brett Yormark and his vision and risk taking that he undertook, I don't know that we would have a Big 12 right now. To be real honest with you, I think the league was on kind of shaky ground as some teams, the announcement with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, and I think Brett went out there and brought in some quality teams. Most of them from the East Coast, and with the addition also of BYU, and then jumping ahead of the Pac-12 when it came to television contract negotiations. To me, that was the most shrewd move, and I think it solidified the Big 12. It gave us, the staying power that we needed, and then I think probably led to the demise of the Pac-12. So Brett, I think, and some of that was obviously with those major institutions moving on to the Big Ten, but also part of it was the other institutions coming over to the Pac-12. And so, look, he's a tremendous leader. He's got great vision. He knows what he wants. He's an outside the box thinker. He's a very, very smart businessman. And the thing I love about Brett is he understands business, and he understands he may not know the ins and outs of football, and he lets football people make those decisions while he goes out and makes the very profound business decisions that have really helped strengthen our league. And so, for me, I think he's the best conference commissioner that there is. I think that, again, had it not been for his insight, his ability to see the future, I think that the Big 12 might be in serious trouble. So we're excited about the future of this league. I think it's going to continue to grow and get stronger. And as I said, I don't think we're too far off from adding other schools and continuing to grow. So I think the future is very, very strong.
We know you've got the Frogs logo behind you. What do you have? What keepsakes do you have behind you that you would say is you're most fond of?
Oh, I've got some stuff, from my dad, some photographs of he and I from a long time ago. Some
hats, I see.
Yeah, some hats. I got a letter from President Bush.
Oh, cool.
To my dad when my mom passed away. I think is probably one of the cool things that's back there as well. And
which one?
And so George W.
Okay.
Yep. And so, the Bush family, kind of West Texas folks, and our family have known each other for a long time. And, they've always been, good family friends of ours. And so anyway, just some keepsakes like that and some cool stuff. And, one thing that's pretty cool that you might not be able to see is there's a football that Nike sent us that came from Phil Knight's wife when we got to the college football playoff. It's a pretty special thing as well. So pretty cool stuff. And again, some of it is wouldn't mean much to anybody else but me, but some of it's actually pretty cool as well.
What's the craziest thing you've done to try to impress or catch the eye of a recruit in your office?
Oh man, I mean, there's no limits to what football coaches will do. We have no pride when it comes to recruiting.
Have you pulled a Lamborghini around? I mean, I saw what Kirby Smart had a crystal football or something. He's got one of the championships. But I'm trying to think of what the recruit would want to see.
Did Sark let you borrow one of his Ferraris or Lamborghinis that they park out in front?
We're not really a Ferrari type of program. One thing we've got, and I think that's our bling is we've got a 71. Ford Bronco that's purple and white that I bought for my wife a couple of years ago, and that's kind of our bling around here. We're kind of a blue collar deal, and we try not to use too many fancy cars to help us recruit.
No doubt. What's the schedule like today for you?
Well, we're actually in an interesting schedule. We've got 2 morning practices followed by an evening practice. And so we're practicing at 6:00 p.m. tonight. We just had 2 early morning practices the previous 2 days. We're trying to give our guys 36 hours worth of rest before this practice, and then we'll have the day off tomorrow and have 36 hours of rest before we practice again the following day. So that's kind of our schedule. We had meetings this morning. We had a walkthrough. We just got done with a staff meeting. We're getting ready to meet with our players again and have another walkthrough. And then we'll go out and practice at 6 p.m. So it should be a heck of a day. It's going to be hot here, and it'll be a challenging practice. I mean, it's going to be well over 100 degrees. I think 103, 104 today. And so our guys are going to go out and have to grind through it and make sure that we are, we're getting tough and doing the things that we have to do while at the same time making sure we're taking care of our players. And that's always a really fine line. So it's a big practice for us. And our guys have really practiced well so far, so I'm excited to see how they do today.
You need to be into 71 Ford Broncos to get through weather like that, not Ferraris or Lamborghinis.
It feels like temperature is that here.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's more the weather for someone into a 71 Ford Bronco.
Sounds like West Texas.
To fight through that.
Too. Yeah. Hey, Coach Mack says hello, by the way, and go Frogs.
I appreciate that. Tell him it's good to hear from him.
I will. I'll let him know. Hey, this has been a real treat to have you on. Thanks for joining us ahead of the season and the perspective on maybe some things that went on in past seasons there.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Always good to talk to you guys, and appreciate what you do for college football. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Coach.
Can't wait. There's Sonny Dykes.